Hello. This is the first episode of Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health. Our co hosts are myself, Neil Parekh, and Dawn Helmrich. Dawn, we're doing this.
We
Um,
are. Here we are.
I have to
A
say,
lot of time.
even before we start, first of all, I want to thank everyone who is watching on replay because they're usually the ones that are going to watch the very beginning of the show. It takes a few minutes for folks to log on to various channels. But I'm just going to start on the outset that, oh my God, I'm incredibly nervous and a ball, like, oh my God, the tension in my shoulders. Um, I, as folks know, I produce shows for Digimentors, weekly with our New York Times read along for clients. So the tech stuff doesn't bother me. But this is a very personal story and personal issues. And I did a year's worth of shows, monthly shows with Candace, which we'll talk about in a moment. That was obviously sensitive, but this somehow feels more so. So just thought I'd get that out of the way, and we can get with our introductions, and we'll eventually welcome folks who are watching. For folks who don't know me, first of all, we're live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and my personal website. We're on both of our Facebook accounts and both of our Instagram accounts. So depending on where you're watching from, thank you for joining us. Please like, comment, share, retweet, do all the things that you do on social media so we get more people watching the show, more people aware of what we're doing. We really would appreciate that. So by way of introduction, as I mentioned, my name is Neil Parekh, and I am the Vice President of Events and Communications at Digimentors. And more importantly, I suffer from anxiety and occasional depression. And those are words that I've never said out loud publicly until this week or so with the blog post I wrote and teeing up the show. Um, and we're here in large part because of a show that I did with Candace Sanchez, Unspoken Conversations with Candace. If you don't know, and this is a trigger warning for folks, I spent last year talking about uh, with the season 3 of her show focused on male survivors of sexual abuse. Uh, People like me. I co-hosted the show and produced it and shared my story numerous times. And I've always said that it's harder for me to talk about mental health than it is to talk about my experience being abused. Um, and so taking some confidence from that, uh, I thought that this would be a great follow-up to push myself to talk about this issue, which is just as important, if not more so. And I just want to thank everyone for the incredible response that I've gotten, and I know Dawn's gotten on her social channels. Um, it's incredibly fulfilling, and it means so much. I'm going to let Dawn introduce herself for a moment, and then we'll welcome some of the folks who are watching on air. Dawn?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I think Neil and I are both feeling our nervousness, and it's really interesting to have anxiety about anxiety. I've spent most of my day today being really anxious and really nervous about this moment. Um, but when Neil approached me with this show that he wanted to do, he did not ask me to co-host the show, mind you. He did not. He just wanted to run it by me, see if I had any interest in maybe being a guest, get my thoughts on it. Neil and I have been really, really great friends for quite a while. And the minute that he started talking about it, like my energy level just got so high. And I was so drawn to the prospect of having a candid conversation about something that so often is hidden or silent. Um, and when we were trying to come up with a name for the show, we just kept talking about like how we walk in these shadows of our own mental health issues, and it's really hard to talk about because there's just so many stigmas that I was compelled, and I think I kind of weaseled my way into, hey Neil, how would you like to have a co-host? I'd really love to do this with you. And we went back and forth for a while deciding, like, were we really going to put ourselves out there and really talk about this? And thanks to all of you who said, wow, like when you talk about your mental health issues, I feel like I can see myself. Or when you post something about, coping, or how you can't get out of bed, like that's how I resonate with that. And so I know that there's a lot of people that experience those types of things, and there's just a very silent nature to talking about it. And I think both Neil and I decided that, we just didn't want to be silent about it anymore. We wanted to bring light to it.
Great background, Don, and I forgot to mention how we knew each other. So we met through United Way. Um, I'm trying to think of now. This would have been 2016, if I'm not mistaken, at the Great Rivers Conference. And we'll talk more about our own personal stories. I made reference to my experience of being abused when I was a child, but that's how we actually got to know each other. You mentioned very casually, in my estimation at the time, that you were a survivor, and at a during a panel discussion about something else, and I just kind of filed it away and made it a point to introduce myself. And I'm so glad that I did, and I'm so glad that we've had the chance to work together on a number of projects, but also on this one. And you didn't force yourself into this conversation, into this show. I was so thankful, and I will give credit to my colleague Sri Srinivasan. When I first approached him and Digimentors about this show and doing this under the auspices of our consulting firm, he was very supportive, but he gave me some advice to make sure I found a co-host. So you stepped up right when I needed you. So thank you for that. Before we jump in, I want to recognize and say hi to some of the folks that are watching online. We have a number of people who have shared their comments. So please, if you are watching, let us know where you're watching from. And make sure you press play on Facebook and LinkedIn if you see the video in your feed. If on Twitter, if you're watching on desktop, you can actually put the press play on the video and leave a comment. So we'll start off with my good friend Stefan Kaplan, watching on YouTube. So looking forward to this conversation and appreciate the show. And of course, Candice Sanchez, who we'll be talking about later, and who is going to be actually our first guest on the show, February 22nd. So Candice, thank you so much. Your name is going to come up a lot today. So, I'm glad you're watching, and thanks for the encouragement. Um, Speaking of encouragement, I want to acknowledge my mom, who's watching from Tampa. Saying good luck and that this show will help others. Um, One of those challenging points of this process, Don, of putting it out there in the world, I called my mom. I sent an email to my family, right? But I also called my extended family, but I called my mom and later my sister to let them know that I've suffered from anxiety and depression. It's not something that I've even talked to them about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's
Hey, Neil, there was
yeah.
a comment. Do you know how to put closed captions on?
Sure. That's good. That's a good question. Let me see where that came from, if I can find it in the comments. So give me a one moment. I don't see it yet. Oh, here. This is Amy, my sister, is asking about that. So depending on the platform, in Facebook, there's a little CC button. If you're watching live, you can press closed captions. YouTube does not have closed captions set up for live, but when you watch it later, it'll show captions. I believe LinkedIn does show captions. So you can check out those platforms as well. Thank you for bringing that up, Dawn. I'm going to go through the rest of the comments, and if there are folks that definitely give them a shout out. Apollo is watching from Philadelphia and saying he's glad to be here. Thank you, Apollo, another colleague at Digimentors. Candace with some good advice. You want to read that one out, Dawn, so I can do it?
Yeah. Well, she said you are not alone. She's told us to breathe,
Yes.
and she's sending us lots of love and light.
Um,
Um, and my fiance is
oh,
watching. I'm so
let's
happy.
find let's
Um,
find Jim's. There we go. Two
yeah,
very strong and brave people. I had the pleasure of meeting Jim when I was in Milwaukee for an event back last year. So Jim, thank you for. He's somewhere back there in a different room, I assume.
he is. He
Um,
is. He's in the other room. He asked me where my lamp went
yeah,
because we had to get
exactly,
more lighting, and the lamp from the
exactly.
living room's gone.
Naomi is
I
watching from the Upper West Side. Who wouldn't be nervous? Thank you. I want to give a special shout out to Paula Kiger, who's watching from Tallahassee. So grateful that you're my friend. I'm grateful for your support, Paula. Um, she's saying so grateful for what you're sharing with everyone. She, for the long time, was our producer for the New York Times read along, and we got to be very close through that process. Our neighbor in Hastings on Hudson, New York, Rochelle Philippek is watching. Rochelle, thank you. Thank you so much. And Stefan is doing what we encourage people to do: share it as widely as you can, retweet it, share it, tag people, etc. A lot of people are picking up on your anxiety about anxiety comment,
yeah.
and having anxiety to discuss anxiety, etc. So here's the first comment that we're going to read at length. Stefan, I've dealt with anxiety for many years and some minor depression. And it wasn't, oddly enough, until the pandemic that I found true peace of mind and calm and a renewed sense of self through spending a lot of time in nature. I look forward to sharing about this on the show one day. Thank you to both for your sense of purpose in helping others. Stefan is one of the people that I had reached out to as we were planning the show, and he has agreed to be on the show at some point later. So we're looking forward to that. I mentioned my sister earlier. She's watching from Bellevue, Washington. Thank you, Amy. Raja Gopalan is watching from New York City. Thank you, Raja. Here's a friend of yours. I mean, ours now too, but I'm
And
going to
yours.
put up.
Yeah,
Who's this?
this is my best friend Kate, who's watching from downstairs. We live in a upper lower together. So
That's right. And I had the pleasure of meeting Kate as well, and staying actually. So I stayed in the lower. No, I stayed in the upper actually when I was there, if I'm not mistaken.
you know, you
No,
stayed at my house.
where did I? No, I stayed. No, but I stayed. I did one night. I okay. Wait a minute. I'm getting
You
all
stayed with Candace
turned
one
around.
night, and
Stayed with
you
Candace one
stayed
night, but
with
I
me.
visited with Kate. I actually spent the
Yes,
afternoon at her place and went
yes.
upstairs and saw where, because I don't think you hadn't moved in yet. That was the thing, right?
I had not. Yeah,
You had not. You had not exactly.
yeah.
Um, who else has and Stefan is tagging our friend Rose Horowitz. So thank you, Stefan. So again, appreciate everyone's support and encouragement for the show. So with that, I also want to, before we dive in, really give a shout out to my colleagues at Digimentors. Um, they're supporting this show, the production of the show, pro bono. All the tools that we're using, my time. It's an official part of what we do. So thank you to Srinivasan, Jenny Lazarus, Linda Bernstein, Rajdi Menon from our leadership team. And then, as you saw, a lot of people watching Paula Kiger, Apollo, Stefan, and others are all from our Digimentors family. So thank you for that. We do, I'm the Vice President of Events and Communications. We do digital marketing. We produce events like this. We do strategic communications, trainings, workshops. We also help amplify events and run AI workshops. So thank you for that. You can learn more at digimentors.group. Digimentors.group. Okay, so with that, we want to share a little bit about our own background and our own experience with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and speak a little bit about that. So I'm going to share uh, a bit of my story first, and kind of where all this comes from. Um, what's the reality of it is that I can remember episodes of anxiety and depression going back to high school, and I remember uh, as much as I was a good student for the most part. I liked school. I There are times that when I was so worked up about a presentation that I had to do that I got sick. I didn't go to school that day. I somehow was able to not go, but it wasn't just a faking putting the thermometer on the lamp type thing. I physically got sick and could not go, and that's happened more than once uh, as time has gone through. Um, I remember um, being in college, and that's the first time I started seeing a therapist. And that's another thing, Don, that I've never shared with people before publicly, that I see a therapist. That I still see someone weekly, but I started seeing someone in college, um, and I went through some rough times when I couldn't work. I couldn't. I was just so overwhelmed. I couldn't get my work done. And there was one time in particular, I remember my dad actually came up to Wesleyan and spent like 4 or 5 days with me, um, just to help me get through a period of time when I wasn't functioning. And I, I don't know where it comes from. I mean, I don't know what the real sources are. A lot of it comes from this um, need to uh, be successful, to perfectionism. Uh, a lot of that I haven't really delved into it, but I think I understand, like, intellectually, that a lot of it is tied to my history of being abused sexually. That there's a through line there. I actually went through several years of thinking to myself. I think this was into college, through high school, definitely. Wow, I was abused when I was a kid, when I was 7 years old, and oh, thank God it didn't really, no lasting impact, no lasting, no kind of um, obvious impact for me. And it wasn't really until last year's show with Candace, when we discussed this on a monthly basis with different guests, I started realizing how uh, close, how much that those mental health issues, imposter syndrome, and trying to overcompensate, all come from that that background. It's it's not something that I shared with anyone that I worked with, any colleagues. I worked at United Way, both locally and in Washington State, and also at the national level. I worked with nonprofits and the state legislature. I could never imagine telling anyone that I suffer from depression. And there were times that I shut down, and over time, I was able to. One of the ways I was able to keep motivated is because I was so busy. I couldn't afford not to go to work. I couldn't afford to miss a day. Um, and things certainly changed once our daughter was born. When Emily was born, um, I could, if I needed the day, Pam could take over. But you almost can't totally shut down once you have family to take care of. Still happens. It still happened. Um, and it happened as recently as December. There were 3 or 4 days in a row where I was working on a project and I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. And every day was a slog, like getting up. I did the minimum. I got got her ready for school, and then I could not get other work done till like noon. And I just eventually I got through it. 3 or 4 days worth felt like a long time. But um, the last thing I want to say, Dawn, and this is with you on the screen, I experienced a really interesting thing around this show. Um, I thought somehow in my mind that if I said the words out loud that I suffer from anxiety, depression, that it would create space for me to experience it. And that, it's kind of like asking people for forgiveness ahead of time, kind of like, hey, so I suffer from anxiety and depression. If I need the time or need an extra little consideration, please do. And somehow I've actually felt that I it motivates me more to not be depressed. In It's kind of a weird thing. It's like, because I've put it out there, I don't want to walk into another show and turn it into a therapy session and talk about the last weekend I was depressed and I couldn't function. And I also don't want to, um I don't know, it's almost like I feel like I can't take advantage of that because I've drawn all this attention on me. So now I feel like there's more focus on what I'm doing. I don't know. There's something weird going on with in my head about that. Um, but I thought I'd kind of. I mean, this is just real, and this is all kind of how we're experiencing it. Dawn.
Good job. Deep breath. Deep breath. That was a lot. That was a lot. Thank you so much, Neil, for your honesty and for yeah, Nancy, thank you. Nancy is one of my colleagues at United Way and a friend of mine. She said that's a good reminder to have grace with everyone, as you truly don't know what they are experiencing. Thank you for that. And Jim, thank you for putting it out there that you suffer from anxiety and depression, and acknowledging how hard this is for both of us, and validating we're doing a good job,
Wow.
because this is a yeah this is a struggle. A lot of things that you said, Neil, like, really resonated with me. The idea of imposter syndrome. I
Yeah.
swear I consistently feel like I have imposter syndrome.
Sure.
Like I'm not, like, I don't deserve to be in the job that I'm in, or I don't deserve the love that I'm receiving, or I don't deserve the friends that I have, because I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, and gosh darn it, I just want people to like me. But the reality is that that's all, I think, a piece of this really complex puzzle of mental health. And a little bit of my backstory, and I shared this with Neil, and I don't often share this. I often share that I'm a survivor of sexual assault. I was raped when I was 21 by three strangers, and it was an experience that had a profound impact on me. I was kidnapped, and I was robbed and raped and shot at. And I was very lucky to survive and have experienced in heightened mental health issues since that time. But previous to that, I I experienced a lot of anxiety and depression in elementary and middle school. And that was before any of this trauma occurred. And whenever I talk about my mental health issues, I always talk about it in relationship to the trauma that I faced when I was 21. But that's because that's an easy way out for me, to be quite honest. um I think that um I oddly have the benefit of being able to share that and talk about my mental health issues, because oftentimes people expect or aren't surprised with what I've been through, that I experienced that. Um, and yet, I'm sitting here right now, and like I feel like like my cheeks are really hot and I'm a little shaky, and I'm experiencing these feelings of nervousness, just sharing that these are things that I go through on a regular basis. And as I've shared with Neil, I have anxiety. I also face depression, and when I say that I face depression, what I mean by that is that there are times in my life when just getting out of bed, um, and taking a shower and being in the day, um, is such a struggle for me. And in my blog post, I share the fact that, I'm very fortunate to work in an organization that respects and understands mental health. But I know that I have lots of friends and family who have said to me, like, I can't, if I have a bad night, if I have nightmares all night long, I don't sleep, or I don't feel like I can function that day. Like, my job doesn't care about that. Like, I can't go into work and say I'm too tired to do my job today. um I think that there's so many of us that, we have to function even when we don't feel like functioning, when we don't want to function. If we need to work, if we need to take care of our children, if we need to do anything in our lives, we have to often push through. um and sometimes we can't push through, sometimes we can't. And those are the moments that I think, for me, are the reason that I wanted to do this. Because I think that it's important to normalize that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay. We don't always have to be on. We don't always have to. Um, we don't always have to be our best selves. And that's, I think, such an important thing for me to stress. Um, and I can see, Neil, you're nodding your
Yeah.
head, and I heard you take like a really deep breath, right?
Yeah.
Because we've been told our entire lives, our society shares with us that you gotta be okay. It's not okay to not be okay, but it is. It really is okay to not be okay.
It's something that, it's not just a question of it's okay to to not be okay. What I'm hoping that we can do is to get to the point where it's okay to talk about that, and it's okay to share that. Um, I've had nothing but incredibly supportive um, comments from folks uh, putting it out there for the first time. So that's certainly encouraging. Um, one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, one of the people that uh, I approached about being on the show, Sarah Wilson, a former colleague of mine at United Way of Snohomish County in Everett, Washington. She went on to become a therapist, and she works with college and high school aged girls in particular. And what's really interesting is that what she said is that they will share insights from their therapists at the lunch table, passing on insights and advice. as if they are sharing beauty tips, or hair tips, or it's very normalized. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that. I want to acknowledge some folks who are watching on Instagram in particular. We can't show them on screen. I'm going to look off screen for just a moment. But Don, on your Instagram account, Doreen Rogers, another colleague from United Way, is watching. Doreen, thank you. Um, it looks like Wisconsin Civic might be joining it as well. And they said, tuning in tonight from Kenosha. Looking forward to hearing some of Don's warm wisdom. Juster 91, RAU 3, Jake Cott, Jake Cocut 32 as well. I don't know if you recognize any of these friends of yours, but they're watching on Instagram. And Deborah Kerr and PK Sharma are watching on my Instagram account. I have computers on both sides of me. That's why I'm looking off camera. I hate doing that, but I'm looking off camera. Um, I also want to mention some folks who are watching on Twitter. Um, so I got a comment, a reply to the live stream. So again, not in the show itself, but Cooper, at Monroe Cooper, says emotions can do a lot to the mental state of an individual. I had to seek help through microdosing. Can't pronounce the medicine he's mentioning, to enable me to take care of my anxiety and depression. Heard it also helps take care of ADHD and chronic pains, trauma, um, etc. So I wanted to thank them for sharing that comment. And we have a couple other folks that have weighed in. So I'm going to go through a few more comments before we share some resources with folks. And if you have questions for us, the comments are great, and we appreciate being able to read them out. But if you actually do have questions, feel free. I will caution that we are not trained therapists, so we're not in a position to offer advice. We are in a position, however, to be empathetic listeners, and to just at least acknowledge what we're hearing. So we certainly would encourage, if anyone is in a position of sharing, we would certainly welcome that. Patricia Kitchen, another colleague from Digimentors, is watching from New York City. And then Apollo shared a little bit more. I'm glad you're sharing. It can be dicey discussing mental health. It's the elephant in the room that I can't mention in my law school application. It's spectacular that I'm learning to hide this because lawyers trade on the basis of credibility. That's shot if you admit a mental health concern. And that's exactly, Apollo, that's exactly how I felt in every professional setting that I've been in. I felt that if I shared that I suffered from anxiety, much less depression, and much less if I had it, where it, you know, stopped me, if it kept me from doing my job for a day, that I would lose the credibility, lose the faith of my colleagues. Well, what's going to stop him from, maybe he won't show up next Tuesday as well. Like that's a huge fear. And I do want to share um, probably one of my most difficult experiences. There's several, and over the course of this year, we'll probably share more details about different episodes. But in particular, I remember working with an organization called Penwar, the Pacific Northwest Economic Region in Seattle, and after finishing organizing an event, I don't know what happened, but things just got so overwhelming, and I was so worked up about how it went and what I did and didn't do. I effectively ghosted the organization. I was working as a consultant. Um, I didn't reply to email. I didn't check emails for a month. I didn't respond to calls. I didn't check in with folks, and it it got. I was so paralyzed. That's when I first started seeing a therapist in Seattle. The hardest thing was to go back in. I remember going for a walk with our executive director, Matt Morrison, who was actually understanding when I told him. I mean, he didn't know. He was like, Neil, what happened? What happened to you? And I had to tell him that I just completely had a meltdown, and then I had to meet with the team and tell them. But oh, so difficult, so difficult. Stefan is tagging some friends to watch on LinkedIn, so thank you. My mom is sharing that my aunt is watching from India. Molly lives in New Jersey, but she's visiting India right now in Pondicherry. So it's probably early in the morning their time. So thank you, Molly. I'm guessing it's close to 5 in the morning, maybe 6 in the morning. Um, let's see. Doug Levy is watching from San Francisco. Appreciate that you're shining light on this difficult and important topic. My mom says you're developing more awareness and acceptance about your anxiety and depression. It's out in the open. And it, my mom herself has an MSW, both from India, from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and from Columbia University. She worked as a psychotherapist for a number of years. This is where it starts getting real, Dawn. I'm going to share this comment from Apollo. And Apollo, thank you so much for sharing this. That I'm bipolar and have anxiety. I found all the medications I need to function, get out of bed to start the day. It took me 20 years to get here.
Thanks so
Um,
much for sharing that, Apollo. Thank you.
yeah, and Paul and I met for the first time when we did a Digimentors retreat a few years ago, and it means a lot that you would share that, Apollo. I don't know how open you are with this, how much you've shared it with others, but it means a lot that you shared it here in this platform on this stage. So thank you for doing that. Um, while you were speaking, he did say you were admirable, Don, for sharing your
Thank
story.
you.
Raja is saying nothing easy about this meeting. Absolutely nothing easy at all. Raja, nothing
Nope.
easy at all. Profile encouraged to speak to this. Thank you. And my mom says it's very normal to what you're feeling, that you have a lot of guts to talk about your mental health issues. Vicky
This is
Walsh
my
is
friend Vicky.
watching.
This is my
Please, so go ahead and
Yeah,
read her
this is
comment.
my friend Vicky. Vicky and I worked at United Way, and I was so excited when I saw her watching this. She says, "Thank you both for sharing your stories and experiences, drawing the connection between lived mental health struggles and the direct impact on how we show up at work and at home is so critical." And you are so right. It really is. Denise is also a friend of mine that I went to high school with. She says, "Great
Great,
topic. Thanks for doing this." And then of course Kate.
Kate.
Oh, and
Let's read out the comment if you don't mind.
yeah, Kate says, "Thank you for your stories and raw truth. The anxiety, depression, and trauma are so real and so impactful on a daily basis." And she's going to say it. She's saying it out loud. She also suffers from depression, anxiety, PTSD, and has recently been diagnosed as bipolar. The journey is real every day, and she's learning to talk about it. And Kate, that's a big that's big. Thank you so
Wow.
much for sharing that. That's really amazing that you did that. Thank you.
Having Kate, we met when I was there, as I mentioned. I couldn't even remember that I had to stay at your place. I felt like I spent so much time with you, and it was so great. I thought I had stayed over. That means so much. That really does, Kate. And I'll say, even just in the short time we spent, Kate and I really bonded, and it means a lot that you would share this. Naomi, also, when I was deeply depressed, I found Andrew Solomon's groundbreaking book chronicling his own depression to be immensely helpful. And that's The Noonday Demon. So certainly encourage folks to look that up. Naomi, if you get a chance to find a link to the book, maybe you can drop it in the Facebook comments. Stefan is quoting uh, uh, Robin Williams: "No matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world." Um, Robin Williams, always and forever. Why this type of show is so important in the pursuit of helping others. Absolutely. My friend Rose, my colleague from Digimentors, is watching. I think we must have such a great rapport together, Dawn. She thinks that you're my wife, Pam. Having a little fun, Rose, if you don't mind. But mental health is health. Thank you for launching this program. Absolutely.
My friend Nancy,
Yeah.
again, I thank you for saying this. I think there's such a stigma about using medication to help with mental health, and I uh, I think that that's just a terrible stigma to have. I think there's a lot of people who, without medication, really struggle. So I think meds do help, as she says, and so does talking about it. It encourages others to acknowledge their own struggles and to not feel alone. And I think that's really one of the goals, right, of this show that we're going to be doing over the next year, is to help people not feel alone.
Absolutely. I think that it's something that we will talk about uh, at various points, and we'll have different practitioners join us. And pharmacology will be one of the issues that comes up. Brian Miller, who is a former New York Times restaurant critic, he was a guest on our show, the Sunday New York Times read along that I do at Sri, and he was on top of the world in New York. He was a big deal back in the '90s, I'd say, and everything came crashing down because of his depression. And he credits his ability to function, and he's had to build back a life um, because of pharmacology. And so he will be sharing that with us at some point later as well. You have another friend watching.
I do. Oh my God, Don. Mwah, mwah. So glad that you tuned in. Haven't seen you in forget forever. Don and I worked together through United Way, and just haven't seen him in forever. It's awesome to see him on here.
That's great. My sister says, I'm here to support you and cheer you on. She found her AirPods, so she's listening outside of her son's class. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate your support and joining us. Um, and Kate saying it's so much easier and comfortable to share in the safety of those who understand. Thank you, Kate. Um, we have one more comment I want you to read out. Um,
Yeah, this is Jim, my partner, my fiance. I'm so thankful to have someone who not only understands my mental health issues, but accepts me as the man I am. And do I ever? I love you.
Absolutely, and I can't say enough about that in terms of the support of our loved ones, family, and partners. Um, you know, my wife Pam, has been incredibly supportive, and I think what's interesting is to note, and I know you and Jim are also very different people in many ways. Pam is very much an introvert, and she doesn't understand. Um, why we would do it we would do this, why would we would you know I mean, be so out there. She's not on social media, she's not on Facebook, um you know but even if it's outside of her frame of reference, of her, the way she interacts with the world, she can still support me and be there for me as I work through these issues, talk about the show, etc. So a big shout out to our partners and the people who love us, um, for being able to be there for us regardless, even if their understanding of the world and the way they interact with the world is so different than ours. I wanted
Absolutely.
to make that
Absolutely.
make that point. Rose is also watching on Facebook and saying she's tuning in from Connecticut, and applauds us for launching this important show. Mental health is health. Rose, another colleague from um, Digimentors.
Absolutely, Rose. Absolutely.
So what we'd like to do at this point is share some resources with folks, and some organizations that could be helpful, some stats as well. So we'll start with NAMI, the National Association of for Mental Health, and we don't expect you to be able to read these stats off the screen. Sorry, National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm going to run their helpline and website as Dawn shares some of these stats.
Yeah, so according to NAMI, 1 in 5 US adults experience illness. 1 in 20 US adults experience serious mental illness. And 17% of youth ages 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder. Um, you know, if you think about that, um, I always say, like, we don't wear our stories across our forehead. Like, when you meet someone, it doesn't say, like, I suffer from depression, or my parents got divorced, or, I had an infant die. Like, none of those things are written across our foreheads. And I think, kindness is so important. Like, just treat people with kindness. Present to people like everyone um has a story, and you don't know what they're going through that day. I always try to give grace. I can't always do it, but I try to give grace when people, are, you know, mean, or they seem like they're angry or they're upset, because you don't know what happened in their life that morning or the day before or at any point in time. So I think these stats are really important to understand, that people are going through stuff, and we need to acknowledge that. The other thing I wanted to share is that 19% of the population suffers with anxiety disorders. And I think that that's really important. Uh, and I think that's what I'm going to share from this from NAMI.
Sure. And I'm going to share that in our Facebook page as well, both the organization and the stats. Um, we also have some uh, information from Mental Health America that we want to share. And again, I'll read out some of these stats, some of these key findings of a recent report that 21% of adults, about 50 million Americans, are experiencing a mental illness at any given time, which is pretty incredible. And the percentage of adults reporting serious thoughts about suicide is 4.8%, about 12.1 million, um, which is it's there's a lot out there. And I want to make sure that folks have these resources. You can call or text 988 to reach Mental Health America, or chat with them at 988lifeline.org. Certainly, if you are feeling depressed, or if you are thinking of harming yourself, please reach out to these helplines. There are trained individuals who can help you there. 16% of youth report suffering from at least one major depressive episode in the past year. More than 2.7 million youth are experiencing severe major depression. And what's also worrying is that 55% of adults with a mental illness receive no treatment. I'm thankful that I'm able to get treatment, that I have, the resources at my, at the ready to support that. And I've had good insurance coverage. Not everyone does. And, it's sobering to think about that. There are a number of other stats. There we do have these stats and more. If you're interested in these graphics, you can find them on the website for our show. So if you go to neilparekh.org/shining light on shadows and click on the link for this episode 1, you'll find them at the bottom of your screen if you're interested. Because Dawn and I are both survivors uh, of rape and sexual abuse, sexual assault, we want to make sure that we add RAIN to the mix, both as a stat, but also as a resource. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted, and the hotline for RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Their national sexual assault hotline is 800-656-HOPE, 800-656-HOPE, which is 4673. You can also visit their website at rain.org. Um, So please, if you need help, please reach out to these organizations. They certainly um, can can help you. And we encourage you to do that. Um, we have a couple of other. Let's see if there are any comments that have come in. I'd shared some of the resources. I'll try and share more in the Facebook post as well. Facebook and LinkedIn. Apollo is sharing that he paid out of pocket and got reimbursed by insurance. That puts good providers out of reach for those who need it most, the traumatized by American life. And Stefan has a comment. It's long, but I'm going to put it on the screen as well. One of the reasons I'm always so understanding, sympathetic, and helpful with the homeless is that so many suffer from serious mental health issues that prevent them from getting back on track. I always encourage anyone and everyone to not judge, for they have no idea what they have gone through, and that is someone's child. Absolutely.
Mic drop.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Um, we have about
Neil,
10 minutes left. I was just going to say we have about 10 minutes left. If folks are joining us late, they can always watch the show from the beginning. Right as soon as we're done, you'll be able to watch it on Facebook, uh, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, my website. It'll take a little bit longer to get the videos up on Instagram, but they'll be there as well. Um, Dawn, you were going to say?
well, I was just gonna say, as we're kind of like wrapping up um, this conversation, I'm really interested. We've talked about this. What was like the one thing that was really scary for you before um, we got on this show when you were going to share your story about your mental health journey? What was like the really scary part for you?
Well, not so much for the show, but when I first published the blog post and just admitted that I suffer from anxiety, um, just saying those words out loud was was hard because I've always, like I said, I've felt that it was harder to say that than it was to say that I was abused. Um,
Yeah.
and it was, you know, uh, over the course. So our plan, we have folks who have expressed interest in the show. We're going to be doing this twice a month. We will be able to do shows for at least a year. Um, and my assumption is that we're going to keep digging into these topics, and we're going to, share more about our own stories along the way. We'll probably explore individual episodes, individual issues. I'll just say that, um, there are things that I've gone through that I'm not ready to share yet in terms of my mental health journey. There are things that I'm still um, holding back on, and I am hopeful that I will get the strength and the courage to share those as time goes on. It's as much of a journey for me. A part of why I'm doing this is I'm hoping that it'll help reduce the stigma. I'm hoping that it'll be helpful for others, create a space for others to share, but it's also therapeutic. It's also forcing me to talk about it, and I'm hoping that I'll um, be able to get some things off my chest in the episodes to come. Um,
Yeah.
what about you, Don? What are some of the stigmas that you think people don't understand about mental health? What what stands out for you?
Just like right before we started the show, I was talking to Jim about this, and I said, I I I think that I don't like the feeling that people think that some people think that mental health issues make you weak. Um, I think just the opposite, to be quite honest. I think gosh darn, do I have some hella resiliency skills from everything that I've been through, and being able to kind of walk through that journey of mental health makes me really super strong. But I think people think, oh, well, she can't get out of bed, or she doesn't, she can't, I invited her out somewhere, and, at the last minute she canceled, because of course she did. And I think that's, first of all, I think that's very unfair. And second of all, I think that, I talked about this in my blog post, how, like, societal wise, we've had, like, commercials and celebrities and these big grandiose views on how mental health needs to come into the light. But when you get down to a granular level, um people will tell you all the ways to feel better, right? Like,
Hmm.
drink
Hmm.
water, go outside, take a walk,
Sure.
get a therapy dog, like all these things. And those things do work upon occasion, but I will tell you that they don't always work, and that's not always the solution. um that just, it isn't always the solution. So some of those things are things that just, like, um uh can catch me to the core sometimes with those stigmas. Oh, and
Sure.
my girl's on.
Oh
I
yeah.
just saw,
Um,
yeah, Brittany just said
Brittany.
she glad she could catch some of this. She's my rock. She is one of my go-to people when it comes to anything mental health, or with the trauma that I've faced. She is by my side 100%, and I'm so grateful for that. Love you, Brittany.
Wow. And just above that, I think if you can share that, if you click on that comment and put it on screen, I'll do that. Kate, I'll do it. Kate, how great is this, Dawn? You want
Yeah,
to read? You
it's
want to
pretty
read that out
awesome.
loud?
Kate said I would entertain being a guest at some point to share my experience and how I got to where I am today. That's really great to know, Kate. That's great.
That's huge. It's
That
one
is
thing to
huge.
share it as a comment and to start talking about it, but to be able to open yourself up like that and be on a show, a live show where anything can happen, means a lot. Thank you, Kate. Um, my
I
sister
can't believe
is
how fast this went, too.
right. We're almost at the end of the hour. Amy is saying it's great to hear you speak about resiliency. It's so important for those who go through this to remember that every day they wake up and face their day, and it is an example of resilience. Absolutely. And Rochelle, who's a close friend of the family, she's adopted my mom. They're neighbors. Um, Resilience is a superpower, and it's only developed through adversity. So
What a brilliant
absolutely
saying. I'm
uh,
stealing that,
great.
Rochelle.
And
I'm
I
stealing that.
must have missed a comment. Let's go back up. I didn't see it, but Amy says that Apollo also said he would be a guest on the show. So Apollo, Amy, thank you for flagging that. Apollo, thank you. We'll certainly be in touch. Um, I want to acknowledge again, and if you didn't see the links to the blog posts, they're in the descriptions for the show, and the link to the website is also in the comments. Um, but I want to again thank my colleagues at Digimentors for giving me the time and space to do this show, and how knowing how important a topic this is. What we're as I mentioned earlier, we already have several people watching who've expressed an interest on being in the show. We are looking for a combination of people who've experienced mental health challenges, but also who are practitioners and uh, advocates. And so we look forward to having people join us over the course of the year. Um, and we hope you'll be able to join us in future episodes to watch next week's not next week because it's a twice a week show, second or not twice a week, twice a month, second and fourth Thursdays. We talked about that, right? It weekly felt like it was too much, even though I do a weekly show on Sunday mornings. Monthly didn't seem like it was enough to really build that that energy and that consistency. So we've settled on the second and fourth Thursdays. So on February 22nd, our good friend Candice Sanchez is going to be our guest. So I hope that you might be able to join us 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central. Sorry, 8 p.m. Did I write that wrong? 6 p.m. Central. And we're really looking forward to having her. That's going to be a lot of fun because Dawn and I are both close to Candice, and it'll be a lot of serious talk, but also it'll be a chance to reconnect. So I want to make sure we have a chance to share some final comments from folks. If you found this helpful, if you found this um, at least uh, eye-opening maybe, or if the stats were helpful, whatever you thought was that you took away from it, let us know in the comments. We're going to build this plane as we fly it, as we used to say at United Way. We're going to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what we should emphasize in each show. And I'm really looking forward to your feedback so we can make this as much of a joint project as possible. Apollo says that look at all the successful people who hid their mental health and died by suicide. It's a pressing conversation that's not being had in our society except after mass shootings, which makes mental health scary.
Very good point. Yeah, very good point.
Your friend Nancy says thank you both so much. Stefan says looking forward to the next show, and always here to support. And Brittany says, "Oh man, I only caught the last 10 minutes." So Brittany, I want to repeat for you what I said earlier. If you joined us late, you can watch the show from the beginning in its entirety on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on my website. Brittany looks like she's watching it on Facebook. So it'll just in a few minutes, if you're watching on your mom's page, it'll just take a few minutes for the video to kind of reset, and you'll be able to watch it from the very beginning. And I certainly encourage you to do that if you get a chance. And bonus points if you leave comments as you're watching the replay, and if you tag your mom or me, we will respond when we see it. Stefan is saying that weekly is hard on those producing and creating. Twice a month will allow you both to breathe more. No need to have anxiety about a show dealing with anxiety. Absolutely, Stefan. We're planning on doing our prep work the week before and then having the show the next week. And then some months that are long, we'll get an extra week off. And Amy says that it's beautiful that Candice will be the guest in 2 weeks. That's for us. It was a no-brainer. The show is really, for me, was born out of unspoken conversations with Candice last year, season 3, which was dedicated to male survivors of sexual abuse. Dawn is the one that introduced me to Candice, so to speak. Dawn asked me to speak on a panel of male survivors out of Milwaukee, and that's where Dawn and I first connected. So it's really it was the only thing that made sense to have Candice be our first guest. We'll figure out who our next guests are after that. Patricia says, "Bravo! What important work you're doing." And Nancy has another comment if you want to read that real quick.
Yeah, she said it helped hearing the personal stories and incorporating the comments in the convo, maybe a more formal Q&A too. Good suggestion.
We could try that. We could try more formal
Yeah.
Q&A. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Naomi says hard topic. Well done. Kudos. And Nancy's looking forward to more episodes. Amy, thanks you for introducing me to such awesome people. Kate and Candice. Another vote for Candice. Candice rocks. And my mom says, very good show. Both of you did very well in terms of expressing your feelings.
I think that's a great way to end it. Hey, on your
I,
mom.
right? I think so. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you,
Certainly want to.
everyone. Yeah,
Yeah,
so great. It's been a great time, and we really appreciate everybody tuning in.
And as a reminder, we will be live the second and fourth Thursdays of each month, 7 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Central. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.